The first thing I noticed when I woke up was that my skin was blue. Not the pale, sickly blue of a corpse or the deep navy of those avatar aliens, but a vibrant, electric blue that seemed to pulse with an inner light. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and stared at my hands in disbelief. This had to be a dream, right? But as I pinched myself and blinked rapidly, willing the strange hue to fade, I realized with growing panic that this was very much real. What the hell had happened to me? I stumbled out of bed on shaky legs, nearly tripping over the tangle of sheets. My bedroom looked normal enough. Same old posters on the walls, same cluttered desk in the corner. But when I caught sight of myself in the mirror, I let out a strangled gasp. It wasn't just my skin that had changed. My eyes were glowing an otherworldly silver, and there were faint shimmering lines crisscrossing my body like circuitry. I looked like some kind of alien cyborg. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, my voice cracking, but there was no response. The house was eerily silent. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up, displaying the date and time. August 3rd, 2124. My breath caught in my throat. That couldn't be right. Yesterday had been July 15th, 2024. I'd gone to sleep in my own bed, a normal 17-year-old girl. How could 100 years have passed overnight? Before I could process this impossible information, a notification popped up on my phone. "Greetings, Subject 217. Your integration is now complete. Report to Nexus Central for debriefing and assignment. Coordinates enclosed." What the actual fuck? I swiped away the notification in a daze, my mind reeling. This had to be some kind of elaborate prank, right? But as I looked down at my transformed body, a chill ran through me. Whatever was happening, it was all too real. With shaking hands, I pulled on some clothes, wincing at how the fabric felt strange against my altered skin. I hesitated at the front door, suddenly terrified of what I might find outside. But I knew I couldn't stay here. I needed answers. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out into a world I no longer recognized. The quiet suburban street I'd grown up on was gone, replaced by a bustling metropolis of gleaming metal and glass. Sleek vehicles zipped by overhead on invisible tracks, while holographic advertisements flickered on every surface. People of all colors, not just blue like me, but green, purple, even some with iridescent skin, hurried past, many sporting cybernetic enhancements or strange appendages. I stumbled forward, overwhelmed by the cacophony of sights and sounds. A few passers-by gave me curious looks, but most seemed too preoccupied with their own affairs to pay me much attention. I was grateful for that small mercy as I tried to get my bearings. According to my phone, Nexus Central was about a mile away. I set off in that direction, my head swiveling as I took in the incredible sights around me. Flying cars, android assistants, even what looked like a small anti-gravity park where children were quite literally bouncing off the walls. It was like every sci-fi movie I'd ever seen had come to life. As I walked, snippets of conversation drifted past me. "Did you hear about the latest neural implant? They say it can boost your IQ by 50 points. Ugh, my holopet glitched again. I swear these things are more trouble than they're worth. Don't forget, the Mars shuttle leaves at 3, pack light. You know how strict they are about luggage allowance." It was all so surreal. Part of me was fascinated, eager to explore this incredible future world, but mostly I just felt lost and scared. What had happened to me? To my family and friends? To the entire world I'd known? I was so caught up in my thoughts that I almost walked right past Nexus Central. The massive structure loomed over the surrounding buildings, a twisting spire of metal and glass that seemed to defy gravity. As I approached the entrance, a beam of light scanned me from head to toe. "Welcome, Subject 217, a disembodied voice intoned. "Please proceed to Orientation Chamber 12 for your debriefing." Heart pounding, I stepped inside. The atrium was a hive of activity, with people and robots of all shapes and sizes hurrying about their business. I followed the glowing arrows on the floor to a bank of elevators, then up to the 42nd floor. Orientation Chamber 12 turned out to be a small, sterile room with blank white walls and a single chair in the center. As soon as I sat down, a holographic figure materialized before me, a stern-looking woman with silvery hair and glowing green eyes. "Greetings, Subject 217. she said, her voice eerily similar to the one that had welcomed me outside. "I am Dr. Vex, head of the Quantum Integration Project. How are you feeling?" I gaped at her, 1,000 questions swirling in my mind. But what came out was, "What the hell did you do to me?" Dr. Vex's expression didn't change. "I understand your confusion. The integration process can be disorienting, but I assure you, everything will become clear in time." "Integration process?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What are you talking about? Why am I blue? Why has 100 years passed overnight? Where is my family?" "Please, try to remain calm," Dr. Vex said, holding up a hand. "Your elevated stress levels may interfere with the neural interface. Take a deep breath and allow me to explain." I wanted to scream that I didn't want to be calm, that I wanted answers now. But something in her tone made me pause. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to at least appear composed. "Very good," Dr. Vex nodded. "Now to answer your questions. You are part of a revolutionary experiment in quantum consciousness transfer. Your mind has been extracted from your original body in the year 2024 and integrated into a specially designed biosynthetic form here in 2124. I stared at her, trying to process this impossible information. But why? How is that even possible? The how is quite complex, involving principles of quantum entanglement and consciousness mapping that would take years to fully explain, Dr. Vex said. As for the why, we are facing an existential threat, one that requires individuals from the past to help us save the future. She waved her hand, and suddenly the blank walls of the room came to life with swirling images, star charts, diagrams of strange alien creatures, scenes of devastation and war. In the year 2089, humanity made first contact with an alien race we call the Void Dwellers, Dr. Vex explained. At first, relations were peaceful. We exchanged knowledge and technology, advancing our civilization by leaps and bounds. But we soon discovered the Void Dwellers had a hidden agenda. The images shifted, showing grotesque transformations as human bodies were warped and twisted into monstrous forms. They were not interested in coexistence, but in assimilation, Dr. Vex continued. They possess the ability to rewrite the very fabric of reality, altering matter and energy at will. They see our universe as flawed, imperfect. Their goal is to remake it in their image, starting with Earth. I felt sick as I watched scenes of cities being consumed by writhing darkness, people's screams silenced as they were absorbed into the encroaching void. We've managed to hold them back so far, but our defenses are failing, Dr. Vex said grimly. That's where you come in. The Void Dwellers' power stems from their ability to manipulate quantum probability. But we've discovered that individuals from the past, those whose quantum states have not yet been observed and collapsed in our time, possess a unique resistance to their influence. She turned to me, her glowing eyes intense. You, Subject 217, are one of 1,000 individuals we've brought forward in time to help us fight this threat. Your transformed body is designed to channel and amplify your quantum potential. With training, you will be able to manipulate reality itself, just as the Void Dwellers do. I shook my head, overwhelmed. This is insane. I'm just a normal teenager. I can't fight aliens or save the world. I want to go home. Dr. Vex's expression softened slightly. I understand this is a lot to take in, but I'm afraid there is no going back. The process that brought you here is one way, and even if we could send you back, the world you knew no longer exists. It was consumed by the void decades ago. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My family, my friends, my entire life, gone? Tears welled up in my eyes and I buried my face in my hands. What about the others? I asked, my voice muffled. The other people you brought from the past. They are here, undergoing their own orientations, Dr. Vex replied. You will meet them soon during your training. Together, you will form the last line of defense against the Void Dwellers. I looked up at her, suddenly angry. And what if I refuse? What if I don't want any part of this? Dr. Vex's holographic form flickered slightly. Then the void will consume everything, past and future. There will be nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide. This is not just about saving our present, Subject 217. It's about preserving the very existence of humanity across all of time and space. I wanted to argue further, to rail against the unfairness of it all. But deep down, I knew she was right. If what she was saying was true, and the evidence of my own transformed body was hard to deny, then I couldn't just walk away. Not when the fate of everything hung in the balance. "Fine," I said, wiping away my tears. "What do I need to do?" Dr. Vex nodded approvingly. "Your training begins immediately. But first, there's someone I'd like you to meet, your quantum partner." Before I could ask what she meant, the door to the chamber slid open. A young man walked in, looking just as dazed and overwhelmed as I felt. His skin was a deep purple, with golden circuitry patterns that complemented my blue. When our eyes met, I felt a jolt of recognition. "Alex?" I gasped. He stared at me in shock. "Sarah, is that really you?" Alex had been my best friend since kindergarten. The boy next door Edie harbored a secret crush on for years. Seeing him here, in this impossible future, sent a wave of conflicting emotions through me. Relief at a familiar face, confusion at his altered appearance, and a resurgence of those old butterflies in my stomach. "Your quantum signatures are perfectly aligned," Dr. Vex explained. "You will train and fight as a pair, your abilities amplifying each other's. Together, you may be our best hope against the void." As Alex and I looked at each other, trying to process this new development, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Dr. Vex's hologram flickered urgently. "We're under attack," she announced. "The void dwellers have breached our outer defenses. I'm sorry, but your training will have to wait. We need you on the front lines now." "What? But we don't know how to fight," I protested. "Your abilities are instinctual," Dr. Vex assured us. "Trust in yourselves and in each other. Now go." With that, her hologram vanished. Alex and I exchanged terrified looks. "I guess we're in this together," he said, offering me a shaky smile. I nodded, reaching out to take his hand. As our fingers intertwined, I felt a surge of energy course through me. The circuitry patterns on our skin began to glow brightly. "Together," I agreed. Hand in hand, we raced out of the chamber and towards an uncertain future, ready to face whatever horrors awaited us. The corridors of Nexus Central had transformed into a chaotic battlefield. Swirling vortexes of darkness tore through walls and floors, while defenders wielding energy weapons and their own reality-warping powers fought desperately against the encroaching void. As Alex and I ran towards the source of the commotion, I was struck by how natural it felt to move in this new body. Despite my fear and confusion, there was an underlying sense of power thrumming through me, as if I was finally inhabiting a form I was always meant to have. We rounded a corner and came face to face with our first void dweller. The creature was like nothing I could have imagined, a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, constantly shifting and reforming as if it couldn't decide on a single shape. As it turned its attention to us, I felt a wave of existential dread wash over me. This thing didn't just want to kill us. It wanted to unmake us, to erase our very existence from the fabric of reality. "What do we do?" Alex whispered, his grip on my hand tightening. I opened my mouth to say I had no idea, but instead words I didn't understand came pouring out. Quantum flux initiated, probability matrix engaged. As I spoke, the air around us began to shimmer and distort. The void dweller let out an unearthly shriek and recoiled as if burned. I realized with a start that we were somehow pushing back against its reality-warping influence, creating a bubble of stability in the chaos. "Holy shit," Alex breathed. "Are we doing that?" Before I could answer, more void dwellers converged on our position, drawn by the resistance we were offering. Acting on pure instinct, I raised my free hand, visualizing a wall of solid light. To my amazement, it materialized before us, holding the creatures at bay. "I think I'm getting the hang of this," I said, a hint of excitement creeping into my voice despite the dire situation. Alex nodded, a determined look in his glowing eyes. "Let's show these interdimensional squids what we're made of." Together, we advanced down the corridor, alternating between defense and offense. Alex proved to be a natural at manipulating energy, sending blasts of concentrated quantum particles that tore through the void dwellers' amorphous forms. I focused on shielding and reality stabilization, keeping us anchored in this plane of existence as the aliens tried to drag us into their twisted dimension. As we fought, I began to understand what Dr. Vex had meant about our abilities amplifying each other. Every time Alex and I coordinated our efforts, the effects were exponentially more powerful. It was like we could anticipate each other's moves before they happened, our minds linked on some fundamental level. We battled our way to the central atrium, where the bulk of the Nexus forces were making their stand. The scene was apocalyptic. Rifts in space-time tore open the sky, while gravity fluctuated wildly, sending debris and combatants alike flying in all directions. In the center of it all loomed a colossal void dweller, easily the size of a skyscraper. Its countless tentacles lashed out in all directions, absorbing defenders and parts of the building itself into its ever-expanding mass. "That must be their leader," Alex said grimly. "If we can take it out, maybe the rest will retreat." I nodded, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "Any ideas on how to do that?" Before Alex could respond, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Subject 217. Subject 218. Focus your combined energy on the creature's core." We turned to see Dr. Vex striding towards us, her holographic form flickering in and out of existence as reality itself wavered around us. She pointed to a pulsing, multi-dimensional shape at the center of the massive void dweller. "That's the nexus of its consciousness," she explained hurriedly. "If you can disrupt it, the entire entity will collapse. But be warned, direct contact with a void dweller's core can have unpredictable effects on your own quantum state." Alex and I exchanged a look. We both knew the risks, but what choice did we have? "We'll do it," I said firmly. Dr. Vex nodded. "Good luck. The fate of our reality rests in your hands." With that ominous encouragement, we turned to face the towering monstrosity before us. The closer we got, the more I could feel its alien influence trying to rewrite my very existence. But the connection between Alex and me seemed to grow stronger as well. Our shared human consciousness, a beacon of stability in the chaos. "Ready?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the fear I could see in his eyes. I squeezed his hand. "Ready." We raised our free hands in unison, channeling every ounce of our newfound power into a concentrated beam of quantum energy. The air around us crackled with possibility as we rewrote the very laws of physics, bending reality to our will. Our combined attack struck the void dweller's core like a bolt of lightning, sending shock waves of distortion rippling through its massive form. The creature let out a mind-shattering shriek that seemed to echo across dimensions. For a moment, I thought we'd done it. The void dweller's tentacles began to dissipate, its form losing cohesion. But then I felt a terrifying pull, as if my very essence was being drawn into the creature's dying core. "Alex!" I cried out, clinging to him desperately. "Hold on," he shouted back, his voice sounding distant despite our physical proximity. The world around us dissolved into a kaleidoscope of fractured realities. I caught glimpses of other versions of ourselves. Alex and I as children, as elderly couples, as entirely different species on alien worlds. The multiverse itself seemed to be collapsing around us, an infinite number of possibilities converging on this single point in space and time. Just when I thought we would be torn apart by the cosmic forces swirling around us, I felt a surge of something. It wasn't quite energy, wasn't quite matter, but something more fundamental. The quantum potential that had been unlocked within us suddenly blazed to life, burning away the encroaching void. In that moment of clarity, I understood. We weren't just two individuals randomly plucked from the past. We were two halves of a greater whole, our souls quantumly entangled across the entirety of space and time. Every version of Sarah and Alex that had ever existed, or could ever exist, was channeling their combined power through us. With a final, reality-shattering burst of energy, we obliterated the Void Dweller's core. The creature's death throes sent out a pulse that banished its lesser brethren back to whatever twisted dimension they'd crawled out of. As the dust settled and the fabric of our reality slowly knitted itself back together, Alex and I found ourselves standing alone in the ruined atrium. Our transformed bodies were glowing so brightly it was hard to look directly at each other. "Did we just save the world?" Alex asked, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. I laughed, giddy with relief and lingering adrenaline. I think we just saved all the worlds. Before I could say anything else, Alex pulled me into a fierce embrace. As our lips met in a kiss that felt like it had been 100 years in the making, I felt the last pieces of my new existence falling into place. Whatever strange future awaited us, at least we would face it together. The sound of slow applause broke us apart. We turned to see Dr. Vex approaching, a rare smile on her holographic face. "Impressive work, you two," she said. "It seems our theories about quantum entanglement between soulmates were correct after all." "Soulmates?" I repeated, blushing slightly as I glanced at Alex. He grinned back at me, squeezing my hand. "I guess that explains a lot." Dr. Vex nodded. "Your connection across time and space is what allowed you to channel such incredible power. It's also what will make you our greatest assets in the battles to come." My heart sank a little at her words. "You mean it's not over?" "I'm afraid not," Dr. Vex said grimly. "The Void Dwellers will return, likely in greater numbers, but thanks to you we now have a fighting chance. And with proper training, who knows what you'll be capable of." As if on cue, the other subjects from our time began to file into the atrium. 1,000 individuals of all ages and backgrounds, each sporting uniquely colored skin and circuitry patterns. Some looked shell-shocked, others excited, but all shared the same determined glint in their eyes. "Welcome, defenders of reality," Dr. Vex addressed the crowd. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Together we will safeguard not just our present, but all of time itself." As she launched into a rousing speech about our mission and the challenges that lay ahead, I leaned my head on Alex's shoulder, suddenly exhausted. "Some first day in the future, huh?" I murmured. He chuckled softly. "And here I thought asking you to prom was going to be the scariest thing I did this year." I looked up at him, raising an eyebrow. "You were going to ask me to prom?" Alex's cheeks darkened to a deeper shade of purple. "Well, yeah, I've kind of been working up the courage for a while now." I pretended to consider. "I suppose saving the multiverse together is a pretty good first date, but you still owe me a dance." "Deal," he grinned, pulling me closer. As we stood there, surrounded by our fellow time-displaced defenders and the ruins of our first battle, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. Yes, we had lost our old lives and the world we knew, but we had gained something incredible in return, a chance to make a real difference, to protect not just our loved ones, but all of existence. And most importantly, we had found each other, across a century of time and the infinite expanse of quantum possibility. Two souls had reconnected. Whatever challenges the future held, I knew we would face them together. As Dr. Vex finished her speech and began organizing everyone into training groups, I squared my shoulders and lifted my chin. Yesterday, I had been a normal teenager worried about grades and crushes. Today, I was a defender of reality, quantumly entangled with my soulmate and ready to rewrite the laws of physics. It wasn't the future I had imagined for myself, but standing there with Alex by my side and unlimited potential at my fingertips, I realized it was the future I was meant for all along. "Ready for our next adventure?" Alex asked, his eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. I grinned back at him, feeling the hum of quantum energy coursing through our joined hands. "Always." And with that, we stepped forward into our new lives, leaving the old world behind and embracing the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. As we joined the other defenders for our first official training session, I couldn't help but feel a surge of optimism. Yes, we faced an unimaginable threat from beyond the boundaries of our reality. Yes, we had been torn from everything we knew and thrust into a world beyond our wildest dreams. But we were not alone. We had each other. We had our newfound powers. And we had a purpose greater than ourselves. The coming days, weeks, and months would be filled with intense training, mind-bending discoveries about the nature of our abilities, and more than a few harrowing encounters with void incursions. But through it all, the bond between Alex and me only grew stronger. We learned to synchronize our powers in ways that defied explanation, becoming a force that even the Void Dwellers feared. And in the quiet moments between battles and training sessions, we found time to simply be us. Two teenagers navigating a relationship across the mind-boggling landscape of quantum reality. We went on dates in zero-gravity gardens, watched sunsets on distant planets through interdimensional portals. And yes, we even had that dance I was promised, though the music was provided by harmonizing quantum fluctuations rather than a DJ. As our first year in this strange new world drew to a close, I looked back on all we had been through with a mixture of disbelief and pride. We had faced our fears, embraced our destinies, and found a love that transcended time and space itself. The war against the void was far from over, but for the first time since this wild adventure began, I truly believed we could win. After all, what force in any universe could stand against the power of quantumly entangled souls?